Imagine a tiny island, so small you could walk across it in minutes. No people live there, no city, no roads, just rocks, coral and sea. Now imagine that this tiny dot in the ocean is worth more than gold to one of the most powerful countries on earth, China. And imagine that the rightful owner of that island, a much smaller nation, the Philippines. This is not a movie, this is real, and right now it is one of the most dangerous disputes on the planet. Today we are going to break it all down for you simply, clearly and honestly. By the end of this video, you'll understand why China is desperate for this island, why the Philippines refuses to give it up, and what this whole fight means for the rest of the world. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about where this place actually is. We are talking about the South China Sea, one of the busiest stretches of ocean in the entire world. Every single day, ships carrying trillions of dollars worth of goods pass through these waters: oil, electronics, food, cars, you name it. Now, inside this sea, there is a group of islands, reefs, and shallow waters called the Scarborough Shoal. It sits about 220 kilometers west of the Philippine island of Luzon. To put that in perspective, that is closer to the Philippines than Manila is to some parts of its own country. The Scarborough Shoal is basically a large triangle of coral reefs. Most of it sits underwater, only a few rocks peek above the surface. It looks like almost nothing. But do not let that fool you. Under those waters and around those reefs lies something absolutely massive in value, and that is exactly why China wants it so badly. The waters around Scarborough Shoal are some of the richest fishing grounds in all of Asia. For centuries, Filipino fishermen have sailed out there to catch fish and feed their families. It is part of their culture, their history, and their economy. But China also has hundreds of millions of people to feed, and Chinese fishing boats have been pushing into these waters more and more aggressively, trying to grab as much of that resource as possible. When China controls the shoal, it controls who fishes there. Filipino fishermen who have fished these waters for generations get blocked. China's fishermen get access, simple as that. Here's where things get really interesting. Beneath the South China Sea, there could be massive reserves of oil and natural gas. Some estimates suggest trillions of dollars worth. China is one of the biggest consumers of energy in the world. Its factories never stop, its cities never sleep, it needs oil and gas constantly. Right now, it imports huge amounts from the Middle East, which is expensive and risky. If China can control the South China Sea and the islands within it, it controls the energy resources beneath them. That is energy independence, that is economic power, that is national security. For China, that is everything. Here's something that most people do not think about. Scarborough Shoal is not just about fish or oil, it is about military strategy. The shoal sits right in the middle of a region that the United States military cares deeply about. The US has a treaty with the Philippines, meaning if the Philippines is attacked, the US must respond. American ships and planes frequently pass through these waters. If China builds a military base on Scarborough Shoal, as it has already done on other islands in the South China Sea, it gets a powerful listening post, a surveillance platform, a place to park warships and fighter jets right at America's doorstep in the Pacific. That changes the military balance of power in the entire region. It puts China in a position to monitor US and Philippine military movements constantly. That is not just valuable, that is strategic gold. Now, let's talk about the Philippines side of the story because this is crucial. The Philippines says very clearly, Scarborough Shoal is ours, and it has the law on its side. In 2016, the Philippines took China to an international court, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, Netherlands. This is one of the highest international legal bodies in the world. The court studied the case carefully, it looked at maps, historical records, and international law. Then it made its ruling. The court said that China's claims over the South China Sea, based on something called the 9-dash line, have no legal basis under international law. The Philippines, the court said, has the right to fish and explore resources in its own exclusive economic zone, which includes the waters around Scarborough Shoal. This was a massive victory for the Philippines. The whole world took notice. But China simply refused to accept the ruling. It called the decision null and void. It did not pack up its boats and leave. In fact, it did the opposite. Let us look at what China has done on the ground, or rather on the water. In 2012, China effectively seized control of Scarborough Shoal. Here's how it happened. Philippine ships discovered Chinese fishing boats operating inside the shoal. The Philippines sent its coast guard. China sent its own coast guard ships. There was a tense standoff for weeks. Then the US stepped in and brokered a deal. Both sides would withdraw their ships. The Philippines pulled back, but China did not leave. Its ships stayed and they have been there ever since. China now uses large coast guard ships and what experts call maritime militia, basically fishing boats crewed by people connected to the Chinese military to patrol the area and block Filipino fishermen. Filipino fishermen who try to fish in their own traditional waters get chased away, have their equipment taken, and sometimes even face physical intimidation. More recently, Chinese coast guard ships have been using water cannons, powerful jets of water against small Philippine supply boats trying to reach Filipino troops stationed on a deliberately crowded ship nearby. The whole world saw the videos, they were shocking. This is the reality on the water today. The Philippines holds the legal rights, China holds the physical presence. To really understand this dispute, you need to understand the 9-dash line. On Chinese maps, there is a line drawn in the South China Sea. It curves around creating 9 dashes, and inside those 9 dashes, China claims almost 90% of the South China Sea, including waters that belong to Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and of course, the Philippines. This line has no clear legal definition. China has never officially explained exactly what it means. Does it mean China owns all the water, the seafloor, the resources, the islands? Nobody outside China fully knows, but China acts as if it owns it all. The International Court in 2016 said this line has no legal standing under international law, but China insists on it anyway. This is the root of the entire conflict. China has drawn a line and said this is ours, and it is using its growing military and economic power to enforce that claim, legal or not. This is a question many people ask. Why does the Philippines not just push China up? The answer is simple and painful: size. China has the second largest military in the world. It has the largest navy by number of ships. It has nuclear weapons. Its economy is the second largest on earth. The Philippines, by comparison, is a developing country. Its military is small, its navy is modest, it cannot go to war with China alone. That would be catastrophic. So instead, the Philippines uses diplomacy, international law, and alliances. It has a military alliance with the United States, the Mutual Defense Treaty, which says the US must come to the Philippines' defense if it is attacked. The Philippines has also been getting louder and bolder in recent years. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has taken a much tougher stance with China compared to his predecessor. The Philippines has increased joint military exercises with the US. It has allowed the US military access to more bases on Philippine soil. And it has made the confrontations public, releasing videos, photos, and statements to make sure the world sees what China is doing. It is fighting back, just not with guns, at least not yet. This dispute is not just about two countries. The whole world has a stake in what happens in the South China Sea. About $3 to $5 trillion worth of trade passes through these waters every year. That includes goods going to and from the United States, Japan, South Korea, Australia, India, and Europe. If China gains full control of the South China Sea, it gains the ability to disrupt global trade. It can block ships, it can charge tolls, it can choke off energy supplies to its rivals. That is why countries far away, including the United States, Japan, and Australia, regularly send warships into the South China Sea to conduct what they call freedom of navigation operations. They're sending a message: these are international waters and you do not own them. China, of course, calls these operations provocative and aggressive. The tension keeps rising. So where does this all go from here? Nobody knows for certain, but here is what is clear. China is not going to give up its ambitions in the South China Sea. It has invested too much, politically, militarily, and economically. Walking away now would be seen as a humiliation for the Chinese Communist Party. But the Philippines is not going to give up either. This is not just about fish or oil. This is about sovereignty, the right of a nation to control its own territory. No country can simply hand that away. International law is on the Philippines side, global opinion is increasingly on the Philippines side, and the United States, Japan, and other allies are standing closer and closer to Manila. But China has the physical presence, and that matters enormously in the real world. This small, largely underwater island in the South China Sea has become a symbol of one of the great geopolitical struggles of our time. A small nation standing up to a giant, armed with nothing but law, courage, and the support of the international community. Whether that is enough, that is the question the world is watching. Now, if you want to know that the whole Malaysia depends on the Malacca Strait, but China wants to steal it, then you can watch this video showing up on your screen. Thanks for watching, mate, and a bundle of thanks for hitting the subscribe button. Bye.